Hey guys, I'm back. Okay, so this video, I'm going to be talking about things to expect after you've been diagnosed with schizophrenia and psychotic spectrum disorders. A lot of people, when they hear the doctor even recommend the idea that they might have schizophrenia, they lose all hope, all positivity. You basically think that your life is fucked. Um, I know this from experience. I was the same way, or although I already felt that way before even getting the diagnosis. I have talked to a lot of fellow schizophrenics that felt bitter or felt cheated by life. And honestly, I think a lot of that has to do with just the stigma of what schizophrenia is in the first place. There's so much misinformation about what it is and what it does that some people don't even understand the basic mechanism of the disorder. So we gotta first look at what psychotic disorders are. A lot of people throw that word around like it's describing evil, murderous, violent, but no. Psychosis is simply a loss of touch with reality, and schizophrenia is the biological aspect of that. So, let's start it off like this. Schizophrenia is when you are detached from reality in a chronic state that affects your perception of everything around you as well as your cognitive ability to function. Um, it's almost like autism in the sense of your brain is different. It's hardwired differently. It's disordered. It's not a bad thing though. Well, yes, it is a bad thing in society's viewpoint, but it's not the end of the world. It's very hard to keep your chin up and eyes forward when you have been diagnosed with such a serious disorder in the eyes of a very neurotypical society. Um, what really needs to be understood is how society acts towards schizophrenia. They don't they don't represent it well. We have we have these movies where the serial killer is schizophrenic or something, or it's just used as a cheap cop out, and it's not fair because a lot of times it portrays the schizophrenic as this violent, angry person with a tinfoil hat that is being told by aliens to kill his family because blah 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 blah. Now, don't get me wrong, that is a possibility. Son of Sam, for example, thought his neighbor's dog was telling him to kill people. But no, we got to understand schizophrenia is just the person's reality is distorted and they just need a little extra help attaching to reality as it is and not letting it fall into their head. The worst thing a schizophrenic can do is go into isolation. If they stop talking to people, their reality checks start to fail. When you're diagnosed, a lot of people do not believe they're schizophrenic. They have seen how it's portrayed and think, oh, I'm not that crazy. I don't hear aliens. I don't fucking um, run around on the street half naked screaming about nonsense. No, I'm fine. I'm perfectly fine and normal. Blah 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 blah. Trust me, if a doctor is seriously considering putting the label of schizophrenic on you, there's a good reason. First 4 years after I was diagnosed, I did not believe I was schizophrenic, especially because I had a voice in my head constantly telling me that you are not lucky enough, you are not severe enough to be considered schizophrenic. They are just blah blah blah. You're actually just really depressed and you're being a bitch about it and you need to stop. Don't seek help, da da da, because no one will believe you, blah blah blah. Because I didn't bring it up to anyone, that was never corrected. Because I didn't actually go out and learn about my symptoms or how they manifested or what they even were, I thought I was normal. And a lot of people think they are normal when they're actually very not normal. You need to do as much research as you can when you are diagnosed. The more you do, the quicker you can, the easier it's going to be to ride it out. So with schizophrenia, you have to not only understand what the symptoms are, and I'm talking about positive, negative, and cognitive symptoms. You have to understand what those symptoms are apart from you. I myself had a lot of self-hatred. I thought that a lot of the things that were disordered in me were because I was not trying hard enough, because I wasn't putting enough effort, just because I just wasn't enough. It would lead me to these self-destructive behaviors, this backwards thinking, and this frustration and self-hatred and anger over stuff that, if I had known from the get-go, were being inhibited by the disorder, I wouldn't have gone through a lot of the self-destructive phases that I did. Once you learn the symptoms, and once you learn, and I'm saying don't just go to Wikipedia, don't just read the DSM, because they don't really tell you how the symptoms manifest. The way I found out is by going on YouTube. I started watching videos about schizophrenia, and then it led me to interviews with schizophrenics, and then from there I went to actual videos of these schizophrenics having vlogs and just talking about their experiences, and it's like, I relate to that, I relate to that, I relate to that. Oh my god, so that's what that is. That's what's wrong with me. That's amazing, because now I have, it's not an excuse. It's like literally just a handicap, a wall that I don't have to try to bust through anymore. I can work around. Gaining insight into your mental illness, being able to accept that that is part of you, that you are different, is the most freeing thing ever. It is probably like next to just the relief of just being alive again. And then you get to learn a bunch of cool stuff. Like, for example, I have Cotard's delusion, which is a thought that, or a belief that I am not alive. I am dead inside. Like, for years I was telling people, like, I felt I was literally rotting or putrefying on the inside. I cannot feel my heartbeat, cannot feel my pulse. Other people can, I can't. My brain will not allow it. It's kind of cool, though. Next, you got to just... You have to learn how to reintegrate yourself into society, because, like I said, isolation is the worst thing you can do as a schizophrenic. You need to be around people. You need to be in the world. You need to socialize. And it's hard. It's time-consuming. It's energy-consuming. And people can be weirded out. Yeah, and some people can even be assholes about it. But you have to keep doing it. If you're left to yourself, your brain is like running on a loop. Eventually that loop will run into just absurdity, and you will not be able to touch base with other rational people. A way that I've learned to do this is have very, very logical, rational, even just sterile friends, like, that are very blunt and honest and will just, have no reason to fuck with you, have no reason to lie to you. Because that's the worst thing you could do to someone with a psychotic disorder, is to fuck with them or mess with them or just play jokes, because that is their reality you're messing with. That's their perception of what is the truth, and they cannot always tell you're joking. They cannot always tell what the sarcasm is, because in their brain, the way that their brain is perceiving, hearing, seeing your reactions, it's not a joke. It's like you're legitimately angry at them, or you're legitimately calling them an asshole or something. It's just, it hurts. And then they feeds into their self-hatred and blah, 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 blah. You know the cycle. Interaction is important, and it's really, really important you explain yourself to these people as these issues come up. And if they cannot accept that that's, a valid reason for the way you are, or if they try to fucking rip you apart over it, they don't deserve to be your friends. That's something we all learn the hard way. It's something I have to learn. It's something you'll have to learn too. But it be like that sometimes. Now, there's something else that comes in with schizophrenia, and that's with the antipsychotics. Antipsychotics are very, very essential for you to be functioning in normal human society. They keep the levels of chemicals in your brain to a certain point, but it's important to remember that they keep those levels to a point. They cannot fluctuate very easily like they do in a typical person's brain. This causes a lot of side effects that involve like changed behavior, a flattened affect, which is just being monotone. Resting bitch face is a part of that. Um, not thinking with empathy, like being very cold and sterile yourself. It's very, very easy to just be callous and not realize it. Um, you sleep a lot, and people don't understand that you're not being lazy and you're not being like whatever. It's because that medicine literally puts you to sleep. They're called major tranquilizers for a reason. Um, if you have a job, like it's I'm employed myself. If you're schizophrenic, it is possible for you to get employed. It might not be the best job. It's not going to be a high energy, high stress job, but you can get employed and raised to the ranks. Like I managed to get myself all the way to management, and I'm pretty severe sometimes. Another thing to remember too is like your symptoms are not concrete. They will fluctuate in severity. Over your life, you will have periods where it's really, really bad, and when it seems like it's on the remission, only to get bad again, only to get good again. It ebbs and flows like a river. It's just how it is. The best way to keep those ebbs and flows from reaching to peaks and valleys is to be honest with yourself and stick to a routine. Stick to something. Don't let your life become just a vegetative bedbug. It's really important that you incorporate being social into this regimen as well. Now, when it comes to handling your symptoms, like that is difficult sometimes. Even with antipsychotics, your symptoms will not always go away. They'll be dialed down. They'll be, either they'll be dialed down or your response to them will be dialed down. Usually both. It's important to remember, like, you will still probably hear some of your auditory hallucinations. You'll still have a lot of the cognitive defects, especially with the medication. You'll be in a brain fog a lot of the time. Just that whole image of mental illness and psychiatric hospital zombies, like that's not that far from the truth. But you have to remember too, our brains produce an obscene amount of dopamine compared to a neurotypical's brain. So if you were to give a neurotypical antipsychotics, they would be in that vegetative state. We would just be meh, a little bit above that. You gotta really, really experiment with your medication. And I'm saying, like, ask questions about it, research it, go online into the forums and stuff and see how other people reacted to it. See what is characteristic of that medication apart from your illness, apart from you. Because there was a long time that I thought me sleeping a lot was just because I was not trying hard enough, and it turns out it was Seroquel. Like, Latuda, for example, made me want to have impulsive self-harming behavior. Knowing that, and knowing, like, hey, this is the medication making me doing this, I should bring it up to a doctor, or I should make sure to keep this in check. It's very important. And write it down. Write everything down about this stuff, and inform your family and friends about what it is so they can keep an eye out, because you can't always, you can't always see it. You also have to manage your expectations. A lot of people are told that they're schizophrenic and they give up on life. They are just completely just fucked in their head, and they think that their life is over and they can't do anything. And because they think that way, they end up not doing anything, just living a life where they just are there. It is going to be hard to like socialize and like network the way a neurotypical person is, but it can be done. You just have to find your own unique way of doing it. Be humble, be friendly, be very, very helpful. Overall, don't blame yourself and don't blame anyone else. It's just something that happened. And it was bound to happen from the get-go because people with schizophrenia are genetically predispositioned to it. It's no one's fault, and you shouldn't look at it like a fault because it's not necessarily something that is bad. It's just something that needs to be adapted to. You also need to manage yourself as well. Really, really, really take everything for what it is, and don't try to follow these grandiose ideas that lead to grandiose delusions, or these self-destructive, down on yourself kind of ideas, because they'll lead you down a self-destructive route. You are as valuable as you make yourself. You're not going to be worthless, but you're not going to be greater than any. You're not going to be perfect either, and that's fine. That's fine. Get educated. Learn everything you can about it. Learn more than any psychiatrist you meet. Be a walking dictionary for this disorder and anything that goes in hand. Do as much research as you can, and you will fucking topple this shit. Because there's going to be a world of ignorant people that are following the stigma, like you probably did before you learned about schizophrenia. They're going to be ignorant and backwards in their knowledge, and need to be educated, and need to know, like, hey, you're not a monster, you're not a careless, you're not a waste of space, you're not something that needs to be feared or put down. You're an individual person who's just wired differently, who's a little bit nutty and a little eccentric, and can do anything that they put their mind to. Out.